Morbid Animal Facts, Part 2. If you ever get bitten by a Brazilian banana spider, be prepared for an erection that lasts for hours. Dolphins are intelligent enough to commit suicide, and the dolphin from the movie Flipper actually did this by swimming into her trainer's arms and holding her breath. Camels have specifically evolved canine teeth for the sole purpose of biting off the testicles of other camels. Lobsters pee out of their faces. Male Tasmanian devils break into females' homes, hold them hostage, and refuse to leave until they mate with them. Orcas are apex predators, meaning they're at the top of the food chain. They quite literally hunt great white sharks, rip them open, and eat their livers. Basically, they don't like the way skin tastes, so if they see a baby penguin, they catch it, deglove it, and eat it like a tube of toothpaste.
Can you tell a place has a dark past just by looking at it? This is part of a series where we look at listings of homes that have tragic backstories. In June of 1996, Darlie Rudier called 911 claiming that someone had broken into this home and attacked her family. Her two youngest sons suffered fatal stab wounds, while she herself suffered superficial cuts and bruises as well as a deep cut on her neck. But upon arrival to the house, the cops immediately felt like the scene had been staged. And though they had this beautiful home, a quick investigation showed that the family had been in deep financial stress. Just 12 days after she had made the 911 call, Darlie was arrested for the murder of her two sons. She's currently on death row in Texas, but one thing has always struck me as bizarre about this case. People have assumed that the motive was to cash in on her son's life insurance policies. But the entire family was home during the attack, including her husband and other child who were upstairs. The life insurance policies of Darlie's two sons only totaled $10,000, while her husband's totaled $800,000. And to me, that motive just doesn't add up.
This is what we know about the 4 Idaho students who were murdered in their house. On November 13th at 12 p.m., 4 University of Idaho students were found stabbed to death in their beds in a home that they shared. The victims were 20-year-old Ethan, 21-year-old Kaylee, 21-year-old Madison, and 20-year-old Zaina. Just a few hours before Madison and Kaylee were murdered at 1:40 a.m., they were seen on surveillance grabbing some food from a food truck in downtown Moscow. They then took an Uber home, and at around 3 to 4 a.m., their lives were taken. Ethan and Zaina, who were a couple, also arrived to the home around the same time as Kaylee and Madison. There were also 2 other students in the home while the murder took place, but they were not harmed, and they said they did not hear anything. These students in the home were also not the ones who called 911, but police will not release that information. Police do believe that this was a targeted and isolated attack, but they do not have any suspects at the moment. In my opinion, I think there's a lot more to this story, and I hate to say it, but these attacks seem really random, and this may be a serial killer.
This true crime case is extremely distressing, so please be warned before watching. Devin Michaels, a 45-year-old woman from Nevada, has been charged with murder. This came a week after 47-year-old Jonathan Willett was found deceased in a home without his head. It was actually Jonathan's mother who had discovered him lying on a bed next to bottles of ammonia and bleach. His mum also discovered that a meat cleaver from the house was missing. Distressingly, Jonathan was actually the father of Devin's children. He owned a moving company in Las Vegas and was known to locals as the Vegas moving guy. Devin states that the day in question, Jonathan had been abusive to her. He had allegedly tried to SA her and she hit him with a stick. She insists that she didn't intend to kill him but to injure him and get him out of the way. She reports that she wanted to get rid of him for a while she figured out what to do with the children. She said she had hoped that he was just injured enough to go to the hospital. Jonathan's actual cause of death is still currently unknown, but it is alleged that Devin threw Jonathan's head in the rubbish and this was likely taken away by the bin men.
I love to talk about dark Disney cover-ups, and one is happening as we speak. A woman is currently suing Disney for injuries she received on a water slide in the park in 2019. But all of the headlines are describing her injury as a serious wedgie, when in reality, this is what happened to her. I don't have to say it out loud, but her insides were coming out of her when she got off that water slide. So this happened on the Humunga Cowabunga water slide. It's a 214-foot drop, and you go so fast that it's recommended you cross your legs because the force from the water can really mess up your nether area. And that's what this woman did, but at a certain point she became airbound and it caused her legs to uncross. When she came back down, the water supercharged into an area that water is not supposed to go. And when she stood up, she was gushing blood from internal injuries and had to be rushed to the hospital. But what does Disney want you to think happened? This woman got a wedgie and is trying to sue poor little innocent Disney for money. But this is my favorite part. The article also mentions other times that the park has tried to cover up serious injuries. So you can see here that in 2005, a teenage girl who claimed in a lawsuit she had a stroke on Disney World's Tower of Terror, and Disney wrote that she just fell ill. And there was also a time at Universal where a boy's foot was crushed on E.T.'s adventure and they listed it as foot pain. Anyways, this is your daily dose of media literacy.
It was not a crime of passion. It was not a crime that was committed because he felt rejected by her. It was not done in a fit of uncontrollable anger. There was no reason. There was no purpose. It was done for no other reason than to satisfy this defendant's internal desire to feel what it was like to kill someone.
Aiden Fucci was finally sentenced to life in prison for the murder of 13-year-old Tristan Bailey on May 9th, 2021. Tristan's body was found in the woods on Mother's Day, hours after she was reported missing. She was stabbed 114 times by Aiden just because he wanted to know what it felt like to take someone's life. When Aiden was put in the back of a police car, investigators found a Snapchat post he uploaded of him smiling. Aiden's girlfriend at the time and his friends told investigators that he often talked about killing others, but they never took him serious. They also said that he did talk about taking someone random into the woods and stabbing them, which is exactly what he did to Tristan. Now, get this, Aiden's mother was even arrested after they found surveillance footage in their home of her washing the jeans that he wore on the same day that he attacked Tristan. But I must say, it was so hard to watch Tristan's mother give her victim impact statement. I literally cried my eyes out. And his case will be reviewed again in 25 years. His Discord friends tracked him down after he murdered his entire family. On July 2019, 24-year-old Menhaz Zaman murdered his entire family before they could find out that he dropped out of school. His family believed that he was studying engineering at York University in Toronto, but little did they know that he had been lying for 3 years. On this day, Menhaz sent a message to a group of friends on Discord saying that he was gonna murder his entire family. One by one, Menhaz shared photos of his family, first his mother, then his grandmother, then his sister, then his father, and they were all deceased. He then played video games and took a nap while his friends online were figuring out whether this was real or fake. But after his online friends shared these gruesome photos with other people, they realized that he actually did murder his entire family. After some digging, his online friends found his IP address and realized he was from Toronto. They then contacted Toronto police and they quickly found Menhaz's address and went to his house. When police arrived to the home, Menhaz sent his last message to the group chat and he said, "Police are here, goodbye." The bodies of his entire family were lying around the house and he confessed that he did this because his graduation was approaching and he didn't want his family to feel ashamed that he didn't finish school. The autopsies revealed that Menhaz struck each one of his family members with a crowbar and then cut their throats. Menhaz was sentenced to life in prison and is eligible for parole in 40 years.
I became a mother at the age of 5, becoming the youngest mother in the world. You'll never believe how old the father is. Hi, I'm Lena Medina. Here's my heart-wrenching story. In 1933 in Chicago, I was a 5-year-old girl like any other, until the unbelievable happened. Doctors discovered I was pregnant. They were astounded, trying to unravel this mystery. I had barely started my life, and now I was about to become a mother. This shocking news traveled around the world, sparking curiosity in everyone. A pregnancy at 5 years old, it was unheard of. 10 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. The press and scientists were baffled by this incredible event. My story created a global sensation. Everyone wanted to understand how this was possible. The medical explanations regarding my early pregnancy were scarce and complex, tied to hormones and early physical development. But the most shocking part, the father of the child was older than my own father. He was arrested after my son's birth, accused of wrongdoings, but released a few days later due to lack of evidence. Thank you for listening to my story. If you want to discover other incredible stories, follow us.
This woman's husband was kidnapped and murdered in what police believed was a random attack.
Samantha Walford was a small-time YouTuber, but she wasn't getting as many subscribers as she wanted, so she decided to create her own real-life true crime story. Samantha met Ernie in 2008 in a tattoo shop in Texas. She was already a mother of 2, and the couple then went on to have 3 of their own children. In February 2015, Samantha called her mother and told her that Ernie had been kidnapped after 3 men broke into their home, and that she was tied up and terrified. The police soon found Ernie's dead body in some woodland, and he'd been shot in the head. Samantha told police that 3 masked men had broken into their home, beaten and taken Ernie, and that they'd tied her up and gagged her. Police weren't buying Samantha's story, and when they asked her how she'd managed to call her mother if she was tied up, she said that she'd unlocked her phone and dialed her mother's number using her face. And when the police questioned why she hadn't called 911 instead, she said that she'd just dialed the first number that came up on her phone. Investigations soon led to 3 men that Samantha had been messaging, and her lies unravelled. She'd hired these men, saying that Ernie was abusive and he needed to be taught a lesson. She first said that they just intended to scare Ernie, but that the 3 men had decided it would be easier to just kill him. All 3 men were arrested along with Samantha. The 2 men on the right were sentenced to 50 years each. The man bottom left was sentenced to 93 years, and Samantha was sentenced to 99 years. Murdered by his Dharma-obsessed uncle, 4-year-old Prince was the victim of his uncle's dark obsession with murder. This tragedy happened just last week in the Philippines. Prince was playing with his cousins at their home when he went missing. They were all being watched over by Prince's 15-year-old uncle Patrick, and when he was questioned, he said that he didn't know where Prince had got to, and the family filed a missing persons report. Patrick is a big fan of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. He'd watched true crime documentaries on him and researched him online. On the day that Prince went missing, Patrick had changed his name in a group chat with friends to Jeffrey Dahmer, and he'd then sent pictures of his lifeless nephew to that group chat with a message. The message said, "I have done something that I deeply regret, and I now need to do my best to make up for it. I let my intrusive thoughts win, and I now need to face the consequences." 2 days went by with no sign of Prince, and then Patrick's mum noticed a foul smell coming from a room upstairs where they kept a disused washing machine. When she opened that washing machine, she found the brutalised body of 4-year-old Prince. He died from multiple blunt force trauma injuries to the head. When she questioned Patrick, he immediately said that it was him that had killed Prince, and she took him to the police. Due to Patrick's age, he won't actually be put on trial until he turns 18, when he can be tried as an adult. The maximum sentence for murder in the Philippines is 40 years, and Prince's family said that they want Patrick to be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
This is one of the most sickening, disturbing cases I've ever heard. In February 2010, Jennifer Dougherty went to a sleepover at her friend Angela's house. 6 people were going to be there who she had recently made friends with at a community centre in Greensburg. She was actually really pleased to make these friends, as she was described as mentally disabled and she found connecting with people really challenging. The friends were Angela and Ricky, who was her boyfriend, Amber and Melvin, who were expecting a child together, and Peggy and Robert. Little did Jennifer know that Angela was getting very jealous of her. She believed her boyfriend Ricky was trying to flirt with her. It's believed that Ricky had actually spoken on the phone to Jennifer about how he loved her. Angela therefore devised a plan and got the whole group involved. Before heading to the sleepover, Jennifer left her mum a really sweet note. She said, "I hope that you will have a good day at work, and also I love you very much." As soon as she walked through the door of Angela's apartment, she was beaten with a towel rack, a crutch, and a vacuum cleaner. Then a horrific 36 hours of torture took place. They shaved Jennifer's head and covered her in nail varnish. She was forced to drink detergent, vegetable oil, and her own urine. They trampled all over her, stripped her, and gagged her. She was then SA'd by Melvin, and they burned her eyes with spices. They forced her to write a suicide note, and then they stabbed her in the chest, lungs, and across her wrists. They wrapped her body in Christmas lights, choked her, and then stuffed her into a bin. The following day, she was found deceased by a truck driver. Angela was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole, as she was 17 at the time. Ricky and Melvin were sentenced to death. Robert, Amber, and Peggy all got between 30 and 80 years in prison. Jennifer is remembered by her loved ones as not having a single mean bone in her body.
What is some of the crazy stuff people have confessed to as they're dying? Well, in this series, I'm going to read to you some of the craziest ones I could find. This story comes from a hospice nurse that was dealing with a patient who had fought in the Vietnam War. Early on in his treatment, she actually asked him if he had any siblings, and he mentioned that he did have a brother, but he passed away in Vietnam. He also had a wife who had previously passed away, and because of this, he didn't have a lot of people that would come visit him. The man had dementia, and the nurse said that at times it felt like he was digging deep into his brain to find moments from his life that he could describe to the nurse in vivid detail. So one night the nurse comes in, and the man is in really rough shape, like it looks like he's not going to make it through the night. And when she walks in, he starts beckoning her over, like, come here, come here, come here. So the nurse comes over, and the man begins to tell her that his brother wasn't killed by an enemy soldier in Vietnam. He had actually killed his brother. And not only that, but these men were twins, so when the brother died, the other one fully assumed his identity when he came back to the States. Meaning that when he came back from the war, he took his brother's entire life, including his wife. The man ended up passing away that night, and later on the nurse told his daughter what she had heard. And the daughter did not believe her at all, but then years later, she finds a handwritten confession from her father stuffed in a Bible.
This is 20-month-old baby Isaiah. Now do me a favor. Imagine for a moment that this is your daughter. Would you, for any reason, ever leave her home alone? I didn't think so. She, however, would. This is her 18-year-old mother, Verfi Cootie. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, and frankly, I do not care. Between the months of October and December of 2019, Verfi had left Isaiah home alone a handful of times, at least 5 times, with the longest period of time being 2 days. So 2 whole days, this baby is home alone to fend for herself. Now, on December 5th, 2019, decided she wanted to go out and celebrate her 18th birthday, even though baby Isaiah had been sick with the flu. Verfi had even canceled plans with the family because of Isaiah having the flu. I guess she was just like, I don't want to take her out because she's sick, which, okay, that's, that makes sense. It probably would be best not to bring the baby out with the flu. Instead of asking someone to watch Isaiah, Verfi goes to celebrate her birthday with her boyfriend, leaving Isaiah in the apartment. Once again, she goes 50 miles to London, and there she lives it up. On the 7th, this is 2 days after leaving Isaiah in the apartment, she was seen at a concert and even asked the DJ to give her a shout out for her birthday. So it would not be until 5, almost 6 days later that Verfi would return to the apartment. So this is when she initially left the apartment on December 5th, 2019, which was a Thursday at 5:40 p.m. This is her returning home on December 11th, 2019, which was a Wednesday at 3:38 p.m. So all this time, Isaiah is just in the apartment by herself. When Verfi gets back into the apartment, she finds Isaiah unresponsive. And this is when she feels like it's a good idea to go on social media and tell her family members that Isaiah is just not doing well. At this time, Isaiah had already passed away. It would be 2.5 hours before Verfi would finally contact emergency services. And that's when they come and take Isaiah to the hospital, where she is pronounced deceased. So her cause of death was a combination of the flu as well as starvation. So just think about this. For exactly 5 days, 21 hours, and 58 minutes, this baby was by herself, sick with the flu, no food, no water, no milk, no one there to change her diapers, which resulted in a really bad diaper rash. Obviously, I know of children that have sat in diapers for even hours at a time and have gotten really bad rashes. So you can just imagine how bad this baby had to suffer. But it doesn't end there. And her mom is obviously arrested, rightfully so. She's a piece of trash. I'm sorry to say it. But in November of 2022, she pleads guilty to manslaughter and receives only 9 years. 9 years in jail for leaving her daughter home while she's out dancing and having a good time. 9 years, and this woman gets to live a free life while her baby doesn't get to live her life. I'm sure she will never have to suffer as much as this baby has had to suffer, but I hope that in jail she feels just a little bit of that. I hope they don't treat her very well in there. And I definitely feel like she deserves more than 9 years.
Teenager's reaction to getting a life sentence.
That there is only one appropriate sentence in this case. Mr. Fucci, if you and your attorneys would please rise. Counsel, is there any legal reason why this court cannot impose sentence at this time? Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison. Because of your age, you are eligible for review of the sentence in 25 years.
Elisa Navarro has fled with a man named Eddie Davis. Images of them moving has surfaced online. Here's a couple things that I found really interesting about these pictures. One thing I noticed about this picture is if you look at Alicia, she seems happy. She seems like she's smiling. She seems like she's having a good time moving. From what I heard, I believe that she's still going to stay in Montana. Here's another thing that I noticed about the pictures, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does that over here look like a card seat? I mean, maybe that was already there. Could be from another family member, right? But why is that here? Now, I know there were rumors saying that there was a baby, but I think those rumors are false. In this picture, you can kind of get a better look of how Eddie Davis looks like. And compared to her, I mean, she kind of still looks like she's 14 in my opinion.
20 years ago, my life changed dramatically in a way I never could have anticipated. And it was all the result of something as simple as offering to water my best friend's flowers. My name's Kara Robinson Chamberlain, and 20 years ago, I was kidnapped from my friend's front yard by a man that was a total stranger, and I found out later, a serial killer. This is my story, one piece at a time in my own words, and I'm telling it in this way to take ownership over it and to engage with you guys, give you the story, but also show you how much more there is to it and how much more you are, even if you've had bad things happen. So there are trigger warnings in this story. You have SA, you have kidnapping. So if at any point you're feeling triggered or you're feeling anxious, then please take a moment to take care of yourself and come back when and if it feels appropriate to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Do not watch this video unless you have a very strong stomach. This case and what this man did to his mum is truly sickening. On the 31st of August 2019, Margaret Sumney was unreachable. Her family just knew something was wrong. They tried and failed to get hold of her for 2 days before eventually ringing the police. The police conducted a welfare check on her in her house in Pennsylvania. What they discovered was horrifying. They found glass all over the floor and blood smeared on the walls of the home. They found the 67-year-old's body in the bathtub of the house. She'd been beaten to death. The autopsy revealed that she died from blunt force trauma to her head. Police interviewed her son David, who initially denied having anything to do with her murder. However, police searched his phone and found some horrific photographs. They uncovered 277 sickening images. These included David's selfies with his mum's dead body. In some, his face was smeared with her blood and he was doing a thumbs up pose. Police also discovered that David was in possession of some of his mum's jewellery and blank cheques. Now, he previously did have a record of assaulting his mother twice, as well as his now deceased father. The same year as his mum's murder, it was alleged that he waterboarded and strangled his ex-girlfriend in an Atlantic City hotel. He apparently slipped through the cracks in the police databases, allowing him to continue to offend. He was soon arrested, and it was found that when he committed his mum's murder, he was taking a large amount of Adderall. His defence argued that due to the substances and alcohol in his system, he had diminished responsibility. Originally, he faced charges of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. However, he entered a guilty plea, so would only be charged with third-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison. Terrifyingly, as he's now been in prison since 2019, and due to his good behavior behind bars, he may be released in just 17 years.
Alright, y'all, you have convinced me. We are doing a SparkNotes story time. Buckle the fuck up. I have waited 7 years to tell this story, and I sure as shit have receipts. This is not all of the evidence I have. I just pulled out the evidence that I think is appropriate for this video. So the month is December, the year is 2015. I turned 16 at the end of November, and I had at this point been physically, mentally, and sexually abused for several years, and my best friend was aware of it and had close personal ties with the perpetrator. I had recently got out of that situation, or so I thought, and so we were gonna hang out and go and hang out with a couple of our other friends, and we were going to smoke a little bit. The night before it all happened, she texted me and told me that I needed to look super hot and dress a certain way and whatever, and that we needed to lie to my parents about where we were going, which I was scared to do because it wasn't something that I had ever done before. She didn't let me leave the house until I looked completely different, and when we got to the place that we had lied to my parents and had her parents drop us off at, we walked over to our mutual friend's house to go and, you know, do our thing. Now, it is extremely normal for teenagers to experiment with things like smoking, drinking, etc. And honestly, that's all that this was to me. So we got to this guy's house and sat down. On the way there, she kept asking me, like, so you're gonna smoke, you're gonna do this, whatever. And I was like, yeah, because at that point I had already tried it many times before and honestly had years of experience under my belt. When we sat down on this guy's furniture, she just announced that she wasn't going to be partaking, and so he was like, okay, and lit up a water bottle bong, handed it to me, and said, ladies first. I was like, all right, and I inhaled one hit, and I started coughing, and he was like, oh my god, I didn't expect you to be breathing it in that long. And I said, why? We've literally done this together for every weekend for the last few months. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he says to me, nothing, that's just some fire shit. I don't think you're prepared. That struck me as odd, and I started to get dizzy within like maybe 2-3 minutes, so I laid down. The next thing I remember is being assaulted, choked, beaten, begging for them to stop, begging for them to call 911 until his mom came upstairs. And she said, this girl needs to get the fuck off of my property. She's gonna die here. You need to get her out. I didn't wait around. I quickly ran, and they followed me down the stairs, and my best friend said, Lexi, do you even know where you are? And that was the first time I realized that I wasn't dreaming. I'll make a part 2.
What? Nothing there, mate. Nothing there. What? There's nothing there.
How did this woman go from looking like this to looking like this?
This is the very heartbreaking case of Charla Nash. One day in 2009, Charla received a call from a friend. Her friend's pet chimpanzee named Travis had sadly escaped from the house and was running loose in the neighborhood. Now, Charla had known this chimp for years, and being as kind as she was, she offered to help lure the chimp back inside. Charla arrived at her friend's house, not suspecting the danger that awaited her. As she approached Travis, the chimp suddenly turned on her, and with a ferocity that is beyond belief, the 200-pound animal mauled her face and hands, causing devastating injuries. In a complete panic, Charla's friend made this call.
911, where's your emergency? This is Sandy. What's the police! Send the police! What's the problem there? The chimp killed my friend!
When police arrived on scene, the chimp was shot, and Sharla was rushed to hospital where she underwent multiple surgeries, including a face transplant. Despite medical intervention, Sharla did end up losing her hands, her eyes, and her nose in the attack. She was also left completely blind and disfigured. Now, this incident completely shook the community. It received widespread media coverage, ultimately raising awareness about the dangers of owning exotic pets. For more 7 Sin crime stories, remember to follow.